let's move on, everybody. Let's go to the transfer rumors. January, of course, lots of transfer rumors going on. Yes, don't worry, PSG, Real Madrid fans will get, or Liverpool fans even, we'll get to Kylian Mbappe in a second. But let's begin with the beautiful, I say beautiful like this, circus that is Manchester United. Of course, Jadon Sancho is back at Borussia Dortmund. There's still a lot of things that maybe could happen at United. We don't know. Apparently, Erik ten Hag is not ruling out January loan signings, whatever that may mean. James, Olley, what's the latest in the Manchester United camp? What do you take from Erik ten Hag's words, and what do you think they need specifically in January? That may be a tougher question, or maybe an easy question, depending on how you see it. What do you think? What's going on at Old Trafford?
Well, I think this is one of these stories where you need to look at if he'd said the opposite and whether that would be a bigger story. So if he'd said on whatever it was, the 9th of January, we're not signing anyone. Can you imagine the mutinous atmosphere at Old Trafford and on social media? So he's in a position where he can't really rule it out with 3 weeks of the window to go. And as I'm sure has been covered many times on this show, January is a difficult window. A lot of clubs, most clubs don't want to sell their best players. It's obviously a condensed, much shorter window. So the clubs tend to have their plans for sort of the first 10 days, 2 weeks, and then they go out of the window, and then there's 2 weeks of sort of scrambling to see what's available and what isn't. And I think there'll be a bit of that among a few of the clubs. Look, obviously Manchester United's problem is FFP. I think what you're seeing they're doing is really trying to lower the wage bill, because obviously if they get a player in on loan, they're going to have to pay his wages. There doesn't sound like there's a lot of headroom at United to suddenly go and splash the cash. So ideally, they're looking to move on some of the big earners who aren't playing. Jadon Sancho being the most obvious example. Anthony Martial is another one who I think a lot of fans would be quite happy to see the back of on a big salary. Whether there'll be takers for him, and I've seen some noise this afternoon with he's saying that he doesn't actually want to go anywhere this January, so United might have trouble shifting him, actually getting him out the door. But they are clearly in a situation where they've got to move some players out first before they can look at trying to bring players in, and then it's a case of, well, who is available, who is around, who is on loan, and really where do you even start with that Manchester United squad to bring in a short term? If we're talking only about loan signings, where do you start? I think defensive midfield continues to be a problem for them. You could argue that they certainly need to bring in another centre forward. Now, whether you bring in someone with experience, which then means that Rasmus Højlund doesn't play very often, or whether you're trying to bring someone in maybe even a little bit older into the more sort of veteran end of the scale, so they can share the workload with Højlund. Højlund stays your first choice number 9. That's a very difficult situation because obviously Højlund's struggling with the physicality and the level of the Premier League at the moment, but he's got a lot of potential. He could still get there. Do they persevere with him? And clearly in the background with United, there continues to be this uncertainty over the ownership. And, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is well, not officially in the building, but he's now being consulted. Ineos Group are now being consulted on transfers. And that's another voice. And what you really need in January, because there's so much noise around and there's so much uncertainty, and it's about really seizing opportunities and taking short-term plans and implementing them rather than having a long-term structure. Another voice in the mix just sounds like it might be confusing things even more at United. I mean, I think what every United fan would want to see is Ineos taking total control of it, but they can't do that quite yet until that 25% stake has been ratified, and that won't happen until after the window closes.
And as you mentioned, FFP remains a problem, of course, and January, as you said, is never an easy one for any club, not just Manchester United. Janusz, so where would you go? Where would you strengthen? There's rumors. They have a little bit of smoke. There's rumors of the Canadian striker Jonathan David from Lille that maybe. I can tell you categorically that Aston Villa won't have the means for that. I think loans it, but Manchester United were rumored to have it. But regardless, he is a player that's been wanted between 30 and 40 million euros, perhaps. Is there anybody that you else have in mind for Manchester United this January, given what obviously James just said about the FFP and the limits and stuff? What do you think about United and what they need to do in this transfer window, if at all anything?
Just be patient. I mean, maybe a striker short term, just to help, just to have a little bit of depth. But I think he needs to recover the players that he has. The Lisandro Martinez. I mean, I can't imagine he's too far. I didn't look where he is right now, but the Mason Mounts of the world, the Casemiro, of course, those type of players. Because as James has mentioned, introducing new voices right now would just complicate things. Let's not forget the players look at it. The morale can be too high at that club right now. But I think there's still enough talent to kind of make it maybe a push for that top 4 or 5. And I think until you resolve and finally get everybody on board in terms of the new investment, there's very little you can do, FFP or otherwise. So I think if there's going to be another rebuild, it's going to be one in the summer where right now you identify players that you know will most likely help you out. Because right now, you're going to be held hostage for whoever you're going to get, right? I mean, I don't think they're going to be buying anyone. So maybe a striker, if Jonathan David, I mean, I can see him as a player, mobile, can play anywhere across that front three. That's possible. By the way, I would have liked him. He would have been much better for Villa than he would have been
100%
for Manchester United. That's for sure, because of the mobility of that front three. If you look at Diaby, Watkins. But that's a whole other story, since you're telling me that that's not going to happen with Villa. But that's the player for Villa for Unai Emery. He'd get a lot more out of him than Manchester United would positionally.
I concur, my friend. I concur. I've liked him for a very long time, but 30 to 40 million euros, I just don't think. Villa also have FFP things they have to follow. Let's move on, James Olley, because you've been reporting on this, of course. Tottenham, Postecoglou's Tottenham. Timo Werner on loan from RB Leipzig. It's he should be able to fit that philosophy lightly. He said it himself. One of the main reasons was because he feels he can definitely help in Postecoglou's aggressive system, but also the Romanian defender from Italy as well. There's murmurs as well. Talk to us about him, Dragushin. What are we looking at here at Tottenham this January? They're being very active, James Olley.
They are, and significantly they're doing their business early, which is something that they don't always do, and particularly in January they very rarely do it at all. I don't know if this is 100% true, but I read something the other day saying that this, I think, is the Werner signing is the earliest one they've made in January for about 12 or 13 years. So normally they leave it. Daniel Levy loves a late deal. He loves a deadline day pivot because of the savings that you can make, the value that you can find late in the window as some clubs start to panic and agents get very busy. But I think what he's done here is he's listened to his manager, because his manager's been saying for weeks that they need reinforcements. They've obviously lost Son to the Asian Cup, and I think Werner's a really interesting signing, actually, because he gives them pace through the middle, which is obviously something they lose when Son doesn't play through the middle. They've got Brennan Johnson out wide, but they don't have any real electric pace through the middle. And the one thing I think even Chelsea fans would say about Werner is he does press the ball. He did work hard out of possession, even when he struggled in front of goal at his time at Stamford Bridge. And that clearly is so important to the way that Postecoglou wants his team to play, and just that energy and that zip that he's got naturally in his game. You can see the fit. Now, whether he can get over the goal-scoring issues that he had at Chelsea and become a reliable hitman in front of goal, that's the big unknown about Timo Werner. But the component parts are there, and you sort of feel as though he could be a good fit. Dragushin's one that they've managed to get over the line despite interest from Napoli and late doors Bayern Munich. As late as yesterday, Bayern made a straight cash offer to rival Tottenham's bid. Tottenham's bid comprises 25 million euros and 5 million in add-ons, and Jed Spence going the other way. And my understanding was that Spence was a little bit reluctant to go to Italy initially. And while there was that uncertainty about what exactly the structure of the deal was going to be, whether Spence was going to be a part of it or not, Bayern tried to swoop in, make a straight cash offer and say, right, here we are, we're at the same level, what do you want to do? And I think it says a lot about Tottenham, a lot about Ange Postecoglou, and to be fair, a lot about Rani Dragushin, that he's committed himself to Tottenham. He'd already given them a strong indication that he wanted to join them before Bayern stepped in, and he will give them a real boost in that centre-back position. I know we've often talked about there being a sort of injury crisis at Spurs in the central defensive positions, but really they've not actually lost that many players. It's that they let Tanganga go out on loan, and Ange Postecoglou does not trust Eric Dyer. Eric Dyer has been fit for the majority of this season, and yet he would rather play fullbacks Ben Davis and Emerson Royale at centre back than risk Eric Dyer. So he's kind of exacerbated the situation at centre back through his own choices, really, Postecoglou. But now he's got Van der Ven coming back from injury. We think the end of the month. Christian Romero, similar sort of time. In fact, Van der Ven might even be fit for Old Trafford in a few days' time. I think there's some optimism there. And if they can get Dragusin over the line, that would be a difficult game for him to come straight in and make his debut. But he's signed early enough in the window to give him a bit of time, have a chance with the sort of staggered Premier League break that we have to just try and acclimatise a little bit. And I think it's a really important signing for Postecoglou and for Spurs as they try and maximise a January window for once and try and kick on and secure. I mean, they're only, what are they, 6 points off the top of the table? But I think if they could get fourth, if they could get a Champions League spot, having lost Harry Kane in the summer and all the uncertainty around the club at that time, it would be a huge achievement for Postecoglou.
They'll have to do that without Heung-min Son for a while in Asia Cup, of course, but we'll see how they do. Let's finish, Janusz, with Kylian Mbappe. Yes, the French telenovela that never ceases to amaze us every January. And there's 6 months left on his PSG contract. He is allowed to talk to anybody at this point. Of course, we know about Real Madrid and their interest. Liverpool, according to many reports, continue to have him on a list. I mean, I have him on a list. We don't know what that could mean. But here's what Nasser Al-Khelaifi said, by the way, to L'Equipe, Janusz. I'd love your thoughts on this. That he was asked, do you have two plans, one with and one without Mbappe? And Al-Khelaifi said, I have a plan. I have a plan with Kylian. I'll not enter into the details. I can only say that I'm not stressed on Mbappe topic. What do you think? Where is your mind going, do you think, with the French World Cup champion? And will he stay? Will he go? Will he go to Liverpool? Anywhere else? What do you think?
Well, he has a plan to sell him, right? I mean, I guess, there's no Messi and no Neymar anymore. So I suppose, he's done it before with big names. So why not do it again? And if you have to it that I think that Kylian Mbappe wants to leave, he should leave if he wants to be the best footballer in the world. In terms of, that trophy, Ballon d'Or, he needs to move on because I just don't think that he's going to achieve that necessarily with PSG. It's not impossible because, as we all know, European Championships are coming around. So I suppose if France would want it and he plays a significant role, the sort of role that he played for France in the last World Cup in the final against Argentina, he could do that at PSG. But I think he wants to move on. He wants to make an unbelievable impact and be amongst the legends that we talk about over the decades in our game. So he's going to leave, and any respectable club, and I include Liverpool in that, should be talking to him. However realistic or unrealistic that may be, I think clubs like Liverpool, the big Premier League clubs, and of course Real Madrid, where I think all believe he's going to end up, should be talking about it. And by the way, we keep talking. We've said it before. We keep talking about Liverpool and those rumors. They won't die. Why not? He's going to be free. He's going to be earning a lot of money, but I fully believe that Liverpool are capable of matching those expectations. The commercial value on and off the pitch of Kylian Mbappe is incredible. So, I don't think a club like Liverpool, for example, would worry about that because that would pay back for itself. And not to mention just think about that, right? Liverpool's already a great club, and if you have Kylian Mbappe, the prospects of in future recruitment with him there just goes to another level. So I do believe in it. I'm a dreamer, and I think Liverpool should be talking about it. If there's any issues with Real Madrid pulling the trigger on it, I think if you Kylian Mbappe and Liverpool, that's a marriage made in heaven.
A marriage made in heaven. That's where I want to end it, James Olley. Can you imagine Kylian Mbappe at Liverpool? Obviously, the Mohamed Salah situation has to play part in here, but can you imagine? Do you see that ever happening? Kylian Mbappe in the Premier League with Liverpool Football Club?
Well, that was the point I was going to make, really, was that, look, I think if I was a betting man, which I am, but I'm not going to put any money on this, you suspect he's going to end up at Real Madrid. That it's the transfer that's been mooted the longest that I think I can ever remember, that eventually he will, you think, end up there. I suspect what Al-Khelaifi is probably trying to do is potentially get Mbappe to renegotiate his deal, but with the commitment that they'll sell him in the summer. So then PSG get a transfer fee for him and they don't lose him for nothing. We've talked a lot about FFP in this show, and that inevitably comes into play when you talk about trying to do a deal on the scale of Mbappe. But I can see a scenario where the Saudi clubs are going to come back for Mohamed Salah this summer. I think that's fairly well documented that they're going to have another go at trying to get Mohamed Salah out of Liverpool. Now, how old is Salah now? 31? 32, 31?
Yep.
If you get offered 200 million for Mohamed Salah and you can replace him with Kylian Mbappe on a free transfer or on a more modest transfer, knowing that you're then going to have to pay. I mean, Salah's on huge wages at Liverpool, but they're going to have to go up a level to get Mbappe. But I can see the economics of that broadly working, that if they can get a big fee for Salah, they obviously then shift Salah's wage off the books, and then they can get Mbappe at a lower level, ideally on a free transfer, but then pay him an astronomical signing on fee and a huge wage. You can see how they could balance that. And there is something, speaking to people in the game, Liverpool's not a club I cover particularly closely, but time after time, the Mbappe thing will not go away with Liverpool. There's always this, as Janusz says, there's always this chat about it, to the extent that somebody somewhere thinks there's a chance of this happening. And so the longer that goes on and the more he doesn't go to Real Madrid, you just think, wow, I do wonder whether maybe Real Madrid have got a genuine fight on their hands, even though I think as we sit here now, they are favourites to sign it.
It changes everything because it's going to be difficult as it is. Mo Salah is going to go. It's just a question of when. When he does, imagine the expectations of the next person. Let's say it's not Kylian Mbappe. I mean, you're not going to come even close. Look at the issues United, Chelsea. I mean, everybody has, with the exception of Erling Haaland. At Arsenal, everybody needs that number 9. And although he's a 9, he could play off the left. And look, Liverpool are scoring by committee, but still in the middle of it, it's always Mo Salah, not just scoring, but creating. And as we all know, Kylian Mbappe can play on the left, can play through the middle, you can put him on the right. And he will deliver that. He will deliver goals and assists. And just the perception of we are a massive club, it changes absolutely everything when you think of Liverpool. So, look, I'm a dreamer, as I've said it, and maybe this will not happen. But if I were Liverpool, I am 100% sure that Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp in the background are trying to do everything to see if that at all is possible. If they're not, I think they're absolutely crazy.
And reportedly, Kylian Mbappe is a fan of Liverpool football. He does like them. By the way, Mohamed Salah leading in assists, joint leading in goals in the Premier League. Out of the goals that Liverpool has scored in the Premier League, everybody, Salah accounts directly involved for 50% of them. And that's how important he is, on his way for 7th consecutive season